The hour is yet early, but whole countries seems to be ready to 2018's version of covfefe, the word or phrase the media is going obsessively fixate on to prove something about the Trump presidency that probably isn't there. For those of you living under the Rock of Gibraltar, a quick summation: the president allegedly used the aforementioned vulgar phrase in a bipartisan meeting on immigration which touched upon individuals who are here under temporary relief visas that aren't so temporary, one involving refugees from a hurricane in Honduras dates back to 1998, and diversity lottery visas for individuals from countries and/or backgrounds that wouldn't ordinarily qualify for immigration to the United States. The account of the president saying whole countries comes mostly from Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who, for what it's worth, has a history of prevarication for political gain. Trump denies using the phrase, which was allegedly applied to Haiti, El Salvador and other unnamed African republics. Durbin's account quickly renewed media claims that Trump is some form of white nationalist/bigot/racist/grand wizard of the Pennsylvania Avenue KKK chapter, etc. Well, if the 45th president is racist for calling out the developmental issues of African nations, so is the 44th. You see, while Barack Obama was never accused of using the term whole nations, he did have the temerity to tell Africa to get their act together. And predictably, nobody cared. Trending: Pelosi makes fun of employees getting bonuses from GOP tax bill. The incident in question dates back to 2009, in the early days of the Obama honeymoon when people actually thought maybe he did deserve that peace prize. Before a trip to Ghana, Obama said that he was a big believer that Africans are responsible for Africa. I think part of what's hampered advancement in Africa is that for many years we've made excuses about corruption or poor governance, that this was somehow the consequence of neocolonialism, or the West has been oppressive, or racism. I'm not a believer in excuses," Barack Obama said, according to the UK Telegraph. While the last 6 words of that quote would induce laughter in a corpse, what the former president was saying, in very diplomatic hues, is that certain parts of the continent aren't doing all that stellar and it isn't perfidious whiteys who are responsible for it. "I'd say I'm probably as knowledgeable about African history as anybody who's occupied my office," Obama continued, displaying his trademark humility. "And I can give you chapter and verse on why the colonial maps that were drawn helped to spur on conflict, and the terms of trade that were uneven emerging out of colonialism. And yet the fact is we're in 2009. The West and the United States has not been responsible for what's happened to Zimbabwe's economy over the last 15 or 20 years. It hasn't been responsible for some of the disastrous policies that we've seen elsewhere in Africa. And I think that it's very important for African leadership to take responsibility and be held accountable." While he didn't exactly use the vulgar phrase currently being bandied about, Obama was directly implying certain countries were excrement burrows, in particular Robert Mugabe's Zimbabwe, whose singular improvement in the intervening years has been the recent removal of Mr. Mugabe. The takeaway from this is simple: even the former president was irked by whole countries in Africa and let the press know he held Africans responsible. And yet, there were no charges of racism, bias or white nationalism. The last might be a bit difficult to peel off, admittedly. If Trump made the remark he's been accused of making, it was vulgar. It was also profoundly unwise. Related: Maxine Waters suffers a meltdown in hate-filled rant against Trump. That said, there's no denying the existence of whole countries, even if one should probably use more dignified, diplomatic language, especially in the presence of people who are desperately looking for enough rope to hang you. If you don't believe that there are countries whose political messes have caused problems for both their own polity and the world as large, you don't have to take our word for it. Take Mr. Obama's. Please like and share on Facebook and Twitter with your thoughts on what Barack Obama had to say back in 2009. What are your thoughts on the controversy over Trump's alleged whole countries remark? Scroll down to comment below.